So today we'll start with JavaScript. JavaScript is our first programming language. When I say programming language, I mean it's our first language that you could use to make a decision. Write in the code. You could make a decision and give the code a instruction to do certain things. Unlike CSS and HTML, where you could make something look better and look nice and change the colors, but you can't say you can't give it a decision. It doesn't allow you to make a decision according to certain rules. So JavaScript is our first language. So today we will learn, these are our objectives. At the end of this module, you should understand what JavaScript is and explain its uses on the web development. You should also know where to put JavaScript code and how to link it to HTML file. So a lot of times people don't know where to link the JavaScript or how to put the JavaScript in HTML file. So we'll cover that. We'll explain ES6 and you will learn what it is in a minute. We'll explain global object in JavaScript and able to use math object. So we'll explain what the global object is briefly and go into the math object. We will write, you'll be able to write a control flow using the if and else statement. You'll also be able to understand basic loop and while loop functionality in JavaScript. So we will learn all the loop in JavaScript. Okay. Go ahead, mute guys if you can. So we have a clear recording in this assignment, the lesson today. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is the third major building blocks of the web. You guys learned HTML and CSS. JavaScript is the third one, where you have to learn to build a nice websites with a lot of functionality. Without JavaScript, we wouldn't have the dynamic content, usability, and the usability we expect from modern websites. We will now learn what it is and what it's not and how it's used, not only on the web, but in all of the applications, all of its applications. JavaScript is a programming language that was created first in 1994, and it was created by a guy called, I think, Brendan Eich. It's a way to add functionality and interactivity to a website. It's what makes the websites run. JavaScript was originally designed to be used purely on the front end. So when I say front end, I mean like the front part of the website, not the back end of the database and the servers, just the front end where you see, just like this website we see right here, that's the front end. So that's what it was originally designed for, and that's what it originally was meant for. From early age, JavaScript was mostly used for pop-ups. So if you see a website with a pop-up, that's a JavaScript. If you see a website with a slider, that is a JavaScript. If you see a website with the text moving or text doing something, mostly that's a JavaScript. So JavaScript was used in that case. So it's used in the front end, but recently it's also used in the back end. When I say back end, I mean in the server. So in the server where you connect to the database. So there's something called a V8 engine. It's a software. They say engine, but it's a software that interprets JavaScript for the browser. So it's that software is in Google Chrome, in other browsers too, and it interprets JavaScript inside the browser. So every language has to be run. So every language is instructions, and the instructions has to be executed. They have to be executed in somewhere. So JavaScript is executed in the V8 engine, and also now JavaScript is run in the backend, and we use something called Node.js, which we will learn in the future. In a couple of weeks, we'll get. In a month or so, or 2 months, we'll get into Node.js, which is the backend of JavaScript. So that's mainly what JavaScript is. It's mainly used in web development, and it's also used in mobile development, using something called React Native. It's used in everywhere, almost every application, every field in software engineering. JavaScript is used. It's used in game development. It's used in animations. It's used in Internet of Things. So, but the main use of JavaScript, where it shines, is the web, especially front end. That's where it shines the most. So JavaScript went through a lot of versions. JavaScript came, I think, around it came 1994. We just talked about it, but when it became famous and everybody was using it was after 2000, and it went through a lot of versions. And now, so there is an organization called ECMAScript. ECMAScript is an organization. I think they are located in Europe. What they do is usually they have a couple of languages, including JavaScript, that they write a specification for. When I say specification for language, I mean the rules of the language, how it's gonna work out. So ECMAScript is you. I mean, it's organization, and it not only JavaScript, but they also take care of other languages. JavaScript is the main one that they usually use. Um, so they released a new version of JavaScript, or new features of JavaScript, and we call those features ES6 or ECMAScript 6. And I think this was released in 2015. So JavaScript had a lot of things going on for it, but they have seen that JavaScript needed update, and actually they are. I think they recently updated it. There's ECMAScript 2020, I think so, or 2021. So they keep updating every couple of years so that we have a better, better language, and people are using JavaScript. JavaScript is literally the number one language in the world. So if you go anywhere in the web and you look at the ratings of languages, JavaScript is at the top of all languages. The reason for that is it's used in the front end, it's used in the back end, it's used in the mobile. That's all we're learning because it's the most used language in the world. Every website and every company has a JavaScript in their website. So it is pretty big. So some people mix JavaScript and Java. JavaScript is one language, Java is another language. The name is similar. The guy, when he was creating JavaScript, he saw how Java was famous, and everybody was using Java. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna create something similar to Java. I mean, the syntax is similar, like how it's written. Java and JavaScript is similar, but in reality, they're two different languages. Just the name is kind of similar. So Java and JavaScript are completely two different things. So that's mainly the introduction of JavaScript. So you can run JavaScript in a browser, in the browser. So if we open our browser right here, or let's just go to something like Google and open inspect. So we were doing inspect for the CSS. But if you go to console right here, where it says console, you could run JavaScript right here. So if we say 3 plus 5, it runs. So it says 8. So that's JavaScript for you. If we say something like console log hello world, it executes that and it runs it runs hello world. So this is the engine we're talking about, and the browser has a way to interpret JavaScript. So as you can see here, this image explains that we can run JavaScript in the browser. We could also use a website called Rebel. So rebel.it. So I'll share that website. It's just a website where you can run JavaScript. So if we create a new Rebel and we use Node as the processing interpreting engine, you could run just like we had, remember, CodeBen. Just like CodeBen, you could run JavaScript here. And I think some people have seen Rebel before. So Rebel, we could run here JavaScript. We could say console log hello world, and it will execute that code right here. And if we say run, it will say hello world right there. So we could use this to test things out and kind of like practice. So let's actually, we just learned how to create a hello world, but let me just go back to it and explain what happened here. So what we just did now is, this is a JavaScript file. This is index.js, and JavaScript files end at js.js. Instead of CSS ends at .css, HTML ends at .html, JavaScript ends at .js. So what we did was we said console log Console log is it's kind of like saying print for JavaScript. You're basically saying take this code, execute it in the console, or in the browser has a console too. So console is where you execute JavaScript code. So you're saying console and then log, basically in normal English, log something, keep a record of something. So it's basically sending this to the console log. So that's what we said. So console log is a function of a JavaScript. So that's how you run console log hello world. This is how you write hello world. So every time you try to learn a new language, you have to know how to execute hello world. And this was kind of like this is tradition in programming. When you're trying to start something new and you're trying to start a new language, you start with by executing hello world. And if it runs and it shows the hello world, then your thing works, and you could run other things too. And there's also a story behind it where I think the first time they sent a code through the network, it just sent hello, I think, or part of hello, and I think it was MIT that tested, and then their server shut down after that, so they couldn't even send enough text through the network. But anyhow, that's how you run. That's how you run Hello World. You could either use Rebel. You could go to rebel.it and it's free. You could create an account there and just practice JavaScript there. Okay, so let's actually learn how to link JavaScript to an HTML. So HTML can execute or can link to JavaScript. So as you can see here, this is HTML file. As in like the structure, we have the HTML, we have the head, body, and the end. So there's two places you could put. So and there's two ways you could put. The first way is internal. Internal means you put in the JavaScript right within the HTML. So you say script, you open it with a script tag, and then you say, okay, go ahead and give it a type of text and JavaScript instead of text and style sheet that we were given to CSS. This one is text and JavaScript. And then between these tags, you can run any JavaScript. So just like that. So we can go to the, let's actually create a file here in my computer so I can show you guys how we can execute. Last time I did this, the video I was recording, it had issue on, like, there was something on the right side that was blocking the video. But let me just create an index here, that HTML, and let's create. So usually when you're creating a JavaScript, when you're connecting JavaScript to HTML, just like the CSS, we're gonna put it in a folder and we're gonna call it JS. And inside the JS, we create a file called something like, usually we say index.js. So now we're going to create a simple and HTML document here. So for me, I have a extension that allows me to kind of like create a basic and HTML layout. So when I click this, actually, it's not that one. Where is it? It was supposed to create, but let's see, HTML. Never mind. We're gonna create ourselves. So we're gonna say head here. We're gonna create the body here. So this is good because you can see it actually. So now in the header, we're gonna put title, and we're gonna call it JS lesson. So right within underneath the title, we're gonna put script. We're gonna give it a type. You don't have to do this. You could just do script and just put your JavaScript here, but also it's good to put that type there. So type is equal to text JavaScript, and now we could run our JavaScript here. So you could do so many things. We could say console log. This is JS lesson. So console log will basically take this text and put it in the console of the browser. So now if we save and we open this file, I mean this HTML index, you will not see anything here. that's fine because JavaScript doesn't render directly on a browser. So you have to go to the console, which is right here. And as you can see, it runs over there, right there. And also it tells you the line. So it says this file, index.html, line 6. That's what it executes, which is right here, line 6. So that's how you run JavaScript in a browser. You could also put this and take this to move it to the bottom. So right here, right before the body, the closing tag of the body, you can put it right there and run this again, and it will run normally. And we could just say here, we say footer. So you can see the difference right here. So as you can see that. Also, when you're running a JavaScript, this is not the recommended way. The external way is recommended, and we will learn in a minute. But if you ever put in a JavaScript in HTML, always put it at the bottom. The reason for that is JavaScript stops the whole browser, rendering. So when the browser renders, if you put it at the top, the browser will not will just keep going. If this crashes and it doesn't execute, the whole website will not show. So a lot of times that's what happens. So most of the developers, they put their JavaScript at the bottom, so that the page loads and all the content loads and you could see. But then if the JavaScript breaks or something happens, then your website shows at least, So that's how you show JavaScript in the browser. So you could do so many things. You could say here alert, but last time I said alert, I had an issue with my video, so I'm not gonna say. If I say alert here, if I just say alert here, there will be a pop-up here in the browser that will show that message. So that's all it does. So this is not the recommended way. This is not the best way to do JavaScript. So what we're gonna do is let me show you the other way. So this is the internal, and it's not recommended at all. This is the external is recommended way. So the external is you link the JavaScript file to HTML. So right here, as you can see, we say script type the same thing, and then we say source is equal to path So and also we have to put it at the bottom because that's the recommended way. So let's actually link that. So let's put it right here. We say script type is equal to text / JavaScript. And then we say here, we say source, right? We say source is equal to JS and then index.js. So that's the file, that's the file here. And it's in the JS file. So, and then we'll close it and it will just close it by itself. So if we save now, nothing happens in the browser. Nothing happens here because there's nothing in this JavaScript file. But if we say console log, hello from external file, external file, and we save it. And when I'm saving it, I'm just hitting Control S. You'll see here it says hello from external file. So that's pretty cool because now you could just type all your JavaScript here, and the HTML just executes it. So you could do so many things with that. So that's how you link JavaScript to HTML. So let's do the comment here. So the comment is, so mostly when you write in a code, you want to leave a comment in the code. Just like we had a comment in the CSS, you could leave a comment in JavaScript. There's two ways to do it. If your comment is one line, then you just use these two dashes. If your comment is multiple lines, then you use this dash, the asterisk, and the asterisk dash. And then you could put as many comments as you want in the middle. So right now, this one, we could just say, we could put here one line comment and say, let's console log. So this text will not be executed into JavaScript. So it will not be executed in the browser. So if we refresh, there's nothing happens. So that's how you write comment. Usually when you write a comment, make sure that it's concise, it explains what are you doing, but don't add too much comment. Just add as much as you need and be very precise. And sometimes it's not even good to add comment because if, let's say this is your code, almost every developer that learned JavaScript understands what this does. So there's no point of like writing, okay, this console logs hello from external to the concept. You don't have to explain it and give it a lot of explanation. So only give explanation or just a little bit of a comment if it looks like you're trying. The best way to comment is if you have a function and that function calls something else somewhere, so it calls another file. You could just say this function calls another file. So it's only usually used when it's like a little more complicated. So that's comment. And if you want a multiple line comment, you just say dash that, and then you write your comment here, you write another line, you write another line, whatever, and then you close it with asterisk dash, and that will make so that this doesn't run at all. So that's how you write comment. Let's go and learn what variables are. Okay, let me ask you guys, what is variable? Can you guys give me a 2-word, 3-word, whatever? Who can tell me what variable is in programming in general? Programming in general.
It is, I think it is just like something that like when
Okay.
you save data,
Okay,
It's
that's
a
good.
way to store data or
Okay, that's good. That's good point.
communicate data or things like that.
Okay, let me disable the notification sound. That's good. That's a good one. Any other points? So let me see. Somebody send a text said placeholder or container to store something. Okay, that's a good one. Mashallah. Any other inputs for variable? What is variable? So think of the word variable. Like what in English? What is a variable? We have maybe English experts here. Mashallah.
Something
So,
that
I am not an English expert, but
it's not constant, that changes.
okay, variable, something that changes. Okay.
yeah, it's something that we use to store data.
Okay, something that store
And
data. In English, how would you think the word variable when you hear variable? Where did it come from? What is kind of like the root?
It varies. Like it's
Vary something
different
that,
sometimes. That's what it means.
yep,
It's
something
not
that
always the
changes.
same way.
Yep, yep, definitely. So when you think of it in the English, it's actually kind of like it makes it a little more clear. Something that changes, something that varies, something, so in programming, variable, as you guys said, is a container. It's a container that holds a value, and the value could be anything. So let's go to here. So at the heart of JavaScript is a variable. A variable is a way to store, change, and use the data in a code. So you could store the data, you could change that data or the information. It could be text, it could be numbers, it could be anything. So it's a container. I think of a variable as like a koob shah. So koobka shaaha markii aad ku shubtid shaah, you drink the shah and then caana ku shubeysaa and then biyo ku shubeysaa. So it's like the cop is the variable and you add in you use it for multiple things. So variable is a way to store something, but you could also change it, and sometimes you could just you could allow it so that it doesn't allow the person to change. You could give it a way to not change. So now we will learn how that happens, but the original way was it changes, and you could change around the content in the variable. So this also says consider your. So it says here as a concept to explain the concept. Consider your favorite web page. Maybe think of like Instagram. So Instagram has likes. So the likes is has a variable. There's a variable called in Instagram code called likes, and that variable keeps the number of the likes. So in that post, it has one person. It has 200 likes, one person it has 2 likes, so everybody's different, but the variable is there and it holds that likes. Think of a game like a soccer game. When you watch the game, there's 2 teams and you have you create 2 variables. You say something like score for team 1, score for team 2, or something like that. And then every time a team has a goal, then you put a number into that variable. Before it was 0, now you put a number into that variable. So that's what variable is. It basically holds something, and that thing generally changes. There are times when you could restrict it and it doesn't change, but a lot of times it changes and it kind of morphs. So it goes from 0 to 1 to 3 to 4. So that's what variable is. So there's three ways to declare variable in JavaScript. Declaring a variable, it means you telling the program, you telling the browser or whatever the engine that is running JavaScript, you telling, okay, what's coming is a variable, and how you know it is by this declaration. So we have three declarations. The first one is var. Var is a keyword, and you can't change it. You cannot change it in JavaScript. So you have to use it. So you say var, and then you name that variable. You give it a name. So you can name it whatever you want. You could say var age, var name, var score, var likes. So var is the declaration. So you're telling the engine that var is what's coming after var is the name of a variable. So it's called a variable identifier. And also var is part of the old JavaScript. So a lot of times these days we don't use var that much. So it's part of like the original JavaScript. And remember, I was telling you how JavaScript was changed around 2015. They made it so that we have better ways to declare. So the reason why var is not the best way is that when you declare this and you say, okay, var name is equal to James Bond. Okay, so now James Bond is a string, is a text, and the name has a value of James Bond. So now you want to change James Bond to something else. Maybe Batman. You want to change it to Batman. So let's say we go through the program, and let's say you're building a movie database or something like that. And at the top of the program, you said, okay, I'm gonna name this actor. I'm gonna give him a var name, James Bond. And then you went to and you created the James Bond movies, and then you went down and you want to create a, like, let's say Batman movie. So now you said at the bottom you said var name Batman. Now you have an issue because at the top you declared name and you said James Bond, and now at the bottom you said var name Batman. Which one is it gonna take? Remember how CSS we said that if you declare something at the top and you declare it again at the bottom one will kind of like overtake. Just like that, var overwrites the top one. So it doesn't give you a warning. It doesn't say, hey, you already declared name. Do you want to name it something else? Do you want to name this variable something else? So it just basically kind of like changes without you knowing. And that's why you have a lot of buggy code. You have a lot of issues with, a lot of people don't like JavaScript, didn't like JavaScript because of that. But that changed when ES5, ES20, ES6 came in 2015. That changed because we have different ways of declaring it. So that's one way to declare, saying var name is equal to whatever you want to put, number, text, all that stuff. We will learn the data types in a minute, but that's how you declare name. So that's one way. So there's another way to declare. We'll come back for this constant, but there's also let. Let is another way of declaring a variable. So you say let is equal to, or you say let name is equal to James Bond. So you could say that too. So let's practice that right here. Let's delete this and say var name is equal to, let's say, to run. Now if you run in the browser, nothing happens really. Like nothing actually comes to the console log because we did not console log this name. So to console log it, you go here, you say console log name. And the reason actually I've seen this, my editor kind of like crosses out name for some reason. But let's actually say here my name instead of name. My name. And this is called the camel casing in JavaScript. Let me just zoom in. It's called the camel case. For the reason for that is if you want to have a two names, two words, you cannot have a space. So some of the rules of variable is that if you want to declare it, you cannot have a space like this. You can't say that. That's not how you name. You have to have one word. You cannot start with something like that. You can't say that. You cannot start with other. You cannot start with like that. So there's few rules. I'll share an image of the rules or link of the rules of variable. But basically, most of the time, you want to keep it to and I don't think you could start with a number two. So you keep it with the word. And if you want to have two words, you camel case. Camel case means the first letter is lowercase, the second letter is uppercase. The second word of the first letter of the second word is uppercase. And if you want to add another word, my name is Duran or something like that. You just go like that, like the camel case. So we're just gonna keep it as my name here. Let's say my name. So now we console logged it. In other programming languages, you will see a semicolon here. In JavaScript, you don't have to. You could do it if you want. You could do like that, but in JavaScript, you don't have to do that. Okay, so let's actually run that. So we just say to run because we told it like we said this name is equal to Duran and we run that. So let's go back to the lesson. Let's try let. So now actually let's before we go to let me show you the problem where the problem comes. So you could just say var my name, declare it again, and you could say Ahmed. And now if we run this and we run in the browser, you see that my Duran was overwritten. So that's not good. That's not good. So that was solved by let and constant, both of them. So now if we say let my name is equal to Duran, so this will still run exactly the same way, But now if we do the same thing and say let my name is equal to Ahmed, we will have an issue. So let's see. So now the browser says, oh, there's a problem. The identifier my name, which is this one, has already been declared. So it has already been declared. So you don't have to declare again. But if you want to change it, you don't declare it. You just say you remove the let and you say like that. So you could change it now that way. So don't declare it. But if you reassign it again, that will change, as you can see. So now you're saying you declare it here and you say, okay, now this is Duran, but you said, okay, but also take this and change it to Ahmed. But if you say let again, it will just give you an error. So that's the difference between var and let. There's also constant, which is a little more strict than the let, and also var. Var is the loose one. It's the most easy one to kind of like mess up. Let kind of like doesn't let you declare again like that, but it lets you rename it. It lets you kind of like change it. Constant doesn't do that. So if we just comment that out, constant and the way I comment that out is I highlighted and I said control and then dash. So it kind of automatically comments that out. So let's say constant. So constant is, what the word says. It's constant, so it doesn't change. So if we say my name, Duran, and we say, if we call it now, it's just going to be the same as the variables and the rest. But now we say, okay, let alone that we declare it again, we say constant, my name, that will 100% not allow us. Ahmed, even let didn't allow us that. But it doesn't allow you to change. So now if we go there, we say that, it gives you error. It says assignment to constant variable. So the browser says, oh, you can't change it. If you have a constant, you can't change it. Usually you use constant, something that you do not want to change forever. So you want to keep it like that exactly. You could change the content here. You could say Muhammad, and that would be fine, but you cannot change it again somewhere else around the program. So those are the three ways of declaring a variable in JavaScript. The last two, the let and the constant, they are from the ES6, which is 2015 changes. So they are like a new addition. And from now on, if you want to declare a variable, you always use constant, unless you have to use let. So never use var, but use constant and let. Any questions you guys have about that? We went over really quick. We're gonna go to JavaScript data types. Let me see what's left here. We'll do the data types, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and do the math. Any questions you guys have about that? Let me know. Anytime you have a question, just write it down. If you're, if you're confused about what I said, and I will go back and kind of like explain it better. So in JavaScript, in all programming languages, they have something called data types. So data types here it says every programming language has a data types, and most of the time they are very similar. Data types are similar, simply what types of data they are currently declaring. For example, if you're trying to store text, you say the data type is a string, and if you're storing numbers, you say the data type is a number or integer. So that's basically what it is. So data types are, the sun is coming out. Data types is basically what type of data are you trying to declare. So let's say you want to declare a name like this we just said. Name is a string. It's a string. A string means just a text. So a string could be all the letters, and you could any combination of all the letters. That's a string. So it's a block of text. There's also numbers. So numbers is just what it is. It's positive and negative numbers. So that's another data type. It's another way of storing something in JavaScript. There's also something called booleans. Booleans are true or false. So if you want to declare a true or false, you use boolean. So you just use true and false, but they're called boolean. There's also undefined and null, and these are called primitive types. So we haven't went to advanced types. There are primitive types. These are called primitive types because they are very basic. They're not complex. They're not complicated. It's just, it's a text, it's a number, it's a true or false, and then there's undefined, undefined and null. So the difference between undefined and null is that undefined is usually comes when something is not defined. For example, it's undefined, so it's not defined. So let's say we say something like, let's delete all this, and let's say we just say, okay, console log call name. We didn't even declare it. We didn't even say, okay, what is my name? So now if we run it in the browser, it will just say, hey, that's undefined. So it says my name is not defined. So the data type for this is not defined. If we say something like type of, I think that's what it is. Type of helps you kind of see what are you looking at. So let's see if we can actually find that. So as you can see here, it says undefined. Type of is a function in JavaScript that's built in the browser. So it basically says, okay, what is the type of this? So if we go up here and we go back and say, we say something like, let my name is equal to Ahmed, let's say, and we save it. Now, what do you think it's gonna say here instead of undefined? What do you guys think?
A string.
Okay, so you say string. What about this? If we say here my age is that, and we put it here my age,
integer.
Okay, a number. So some
Number.
languages like Java and other languages, they say integer. Some languages like JavaScript, it says number. So they're very same. Number and integer are exactly the same. So that's how you know what type of data. Okay, so null. Okay, null is different. Null is, it means nothing. So in programming, when you see null, it means nothing. It means empty, nothing. So you usually use this when you're trying to make something equal to nothing. And usually null doesn't come from an error. It comes from where the developer actually sets null. So you have to say, you will not see null in the wild. You will not see it in the wild. I mean, like, you will not see it in the browser. The browser doesn't have it as a default. So you have to say something like that. You have to say null. So that you mean like now, oh, we don't have the age. So for example, you have a program where you don't have the age and you didn't get the age, you could say, okay, if the age is empty, set it to null. And now if we run it, it should say, no, it says object because null is an object by itself as a type. But if we call it the normal way, you should say this, this is a null. So null itself as a type is object, but the developer has to set it as not equal to whatever he's trying to do or she's trying to do. So that's the types. These are examples. Another thing to keep in mind is that you could actually do this. So let me actually give you an example, guys, and kind of like ask you. So let's say we say 25 again, and we say type of here. What do you guys think is gonna come? What is the result?
Number 25.
Okay, you guys all
A
think it's a
string.
number? What is
It
that?
was saying
I think a string.
A string? Okay. Good. Okay.
I
So
think it was a number.
okay, some of you think it's a number, some of you think it's a string. So that's good. So it will say string. Why does it say string?
Oh, because you put the quotation.
I put the quotation around the number. So JavaScript is an interesting language because a lot of people don't like this. The reason for that is a lot of languages have something called strong typing, or they're called you have to declare the type. So you have to say, for example, in Java and other languages, you have to say something like string here. You have to say that. You have to tell the program, and if you don't give it a string, it will give you error right away. The program will crash right away. So, but JavaScript kind of guesses what are you trying to do. Okay, it says, okay, you put quotation around the thing that you're trying to declare, so I think it's a string. And Python is the same thing. Python doesn't it guesses. If you just give it a number, it will say, oh, I think that's a number. But in reality, that's not it. It's a guessing. So a lot of people don't like that. So they use something called TypeScript, which is a version of JavaScript that is strongly typed. When I say strongly typed, I mean you have to declare the actual data type. So just like that, because it's giving us error now because it doesn't know what's happening. So you have to do that. Actually, if we change here to TS, which I'm just testing it out, it might not work. TS is a TypeScript, is a part of, is a type of JavaScript that is strongly typed. So as you can see, it doesn't give us an error. I mean, it gives us an error, but it also expects other things too. I think you have to say something like that, and so I don't know a lot about TypeScript, so we're not going to go there. So let's just change it to JavaScript. So TS, TypeScript and JavaScript are just exactly the same. The only difference is that TypeScript is strongly typed. So we learned that in JavaScript you could actually have a number that is a string. So keep that in mind, and you might get confused when you see that. So there's also Boolean. So if we set this to true, and we have the type of, what do you guys think is gonna come? I mean, I just told you, Boolean. So Boolean. So Boolean is true or false. So if you say false, so usually this is used when you're like setting when you have a condition and you say, is this true or not? That's usually what's used for. So the Boolean is a true or false. Undefined, we talked about a little bit what undefined is. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Those are the different types of primitive. So these are primitive. So in other lessons, when we finish this, this whole lesson, the 5 lessons we have, the week after the week coming, we will get into advanced JavaScript, and you will see you will see much more advanced data types. But these are the primitives. Do you guys have any question about these JavaScript data types and other things that we talked about? Any questions before we go into a break?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you explain one more time the null?
Okay, the null. Okay, good. So null. So null, the description of null is that it's a nothing. So let me actually go to W3 schools so that it's more precise. It gives more precise description. Null JavaScript. Let's see. So data types, and we go here, we go to a null. Let's go. Let's just say null. So it says here in JavaScript, a null is nothing. So it's empty, it's a nothing. It's supposed to be something that does not exist. So if you wanna have a variable that has nothing in it, you could set it to null. You could also just declare it and just leave it and say something like this. So if you say it like that, I mean not that. If you declare it like that and you do not set anything to it, now it's just empty. It's empty variable. But if you want it so that in your database or in other places you want this variable to equal to null when there's nothing in it, then that's how you declare it. So it means nothing. Unfortunately, in JavaScript, the data type of null is an object. So they say unfortunately is an object. You can consider it a bug in JavaScript that type of null is an object. It should be a null. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Remember, I was a little bit surprised when it said object, because I always used to think null is just a type of a null, but it's not really. It's object. So the description of it is just it's a nothing. So when you try to set something empty, you say null. Does that make sense? I mean, it's confusing, but consider it as nothing. So just if you want to set a variable to nothing, just set it to null.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question? Okay. All right. Let's take a break of 10 minutes. Let's get our coffee and all that, and get back to JavaScript. Let's get back to math. So we'll kind of talk about your math, your math skills a little bit. So let's reset that to 10 minutes. Okay, see you guys soon.
From the manager and also the players not really performing on the pitch.
phone. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, let's get started. Okay, got my coffee. I have to have 2 coffees every day these days. Inshallah. All right. Okay, let's get back to it. And we're going to get started with math operators in JavaScript. So JavaScript has something called global object, which we will learn. Global object, I think that we could go to W2 schools, JavaScript. So if we learn the global object, let's see. So this one, let's just go somewhere else. So if we go to the MDN, so if you ever heard MDN, this is the reference to all JavaScript. So MDN is the place where all the description of JavaScript is located, and it's a Mozilla Firefox was created this, or the Mozilla organization, and it basically describes every aspect of JavaScript. So they have, if you want the documentation for JavaScript, is the MDN. So what is the global object? The global object is an object that is always exists in the global scope. In JavaScript, there's always a global object defined. In web browsers, when scripts create global variables, define var. So global object is the general object that is, if you create a variable without putting it inside a function, it's a global. It has a global scope. So global scope. So that is the global. And in JavaScript, in the browsers, there is something called window, which is the first place where global objects start. So if we go here in the console and we say, let's close this, and we say window dot, this is where everything comes under in the browser. So all these are objects that is within the browser. There's also document. If we go to document, so if you say document right now, as you can see, it selected this area. So document is the whole website is a document. So so many things you could select in the global. So this is where all the objects of JavaScript is located. So, and that's that's a global object where you have the global object. So if you create an object, if you create a variable that has no scope, and the scope, we will learn what it is. Scope is basically if you put a variable within a function, it's the function scope. And if you put it outside and just there's nothing, it's not within anything, then it becomes a global scope. So that's the difference. So math is a default, or it's a built-in object in JavaScript, and it's like the global object. So it's built in. So there's a lot of math objects that are built in JavaScript, but there's also a operations or standard operations that that JavaScript has. Just like you learned in school, it has plus, minus, subtraction. I mean, multiplication and division. So as you can see here, you could just add 2 numbers and you get the result. Multiply 2 numbers, you get the result. And if you want to divide, you use that, the dash, and you get the result. So it's very, very basic. You could set 2 variables to a number, and then you could add them like that. And JavaScript will know, it will take this variable and it will give you 2. This one, it will give it 2, and then it will add those 2 numbers, and it will give you 4. You could also add strings, not only numbers, you could add a string. So if you say, right here, let's actually test it out. If we say something like age, let's actually say my name is equal to Duran. Let's say my first name. First name is equal to Duran, and let's say my last name. Let my last name. I don't know why I'm adding my, but last name is equal to Ali. So now if we want to add these two, you could just create a new variable if you want. If you want to be extra, you could create a new variable and call it my name equal to, you could say my first name plus my last name. And you could put a space here if you want. This is how you put a space between the two. You will see when we declare it. And then you'll say my last name. So now what we did was we just took these two variables and put it in this variable. So we're kind of nesting variables. So if we declare this and if we console log it, if you console log my name, you see that it should say my full name to run Ali right there. And the space came from because we added here space. If we remove this and we just have first name plus last name, it should be right next to each other like that. So you could add strings if you want. There's also something called module. Or modular or I don't know how to say this word. Module. I think it's called module. Module operator. So module operator, I don't think you learned in math. I mean, you learned what the result of it. The result of it is that if you divide two numbers, then the remainder is the module. So if you went through fraction or division, the remainder you get is in programming in JavaScript, it's called module. So right now, so we say 21 module 5. 21 module 5 is 1. So can someone explain to me why is that? Why is it that when we divide...
you divide to 4, you divide by 5, so you left 1.
You have a remainder. You have remainder of 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where it came from. So the 1 is the remainder of dividing 21 by 5. So if you divide 21 by 5, 5 goes 21 into 4 times, and then you have 1 remaining. So that's how you get the 1. And this is really important in programming. The module thing is really important, and we'll see. And you'll have it in your assignment. You'll have a problem where you kind of have to figure out how to use this to make that problem work. And this one is same. 21. How many times 6 goes into 21? 3 times, right? So, and then you have a remainder of 3. So yeah, so it's 6 times 3 is, I think, 18, and then you have 3 remaining. And how many times does this go? So basically it goes to 3 times, and then you have remainder of 0. So that's how you use module. It's very, very important to learn in JavaScript because there's a lot of things that it will help you with. So now let's get to the actual methods of math, which are the most fun ones. So we have these methods are built in JavaScript. These are, you could use it in the browser, you could use it in REPL, anywhere, and they will work. So the math.pow is a exponent. So you learn exponents in school. Some of us, it's been a while. So pow is the power. So it's kind of like shortened for power. So you say in basically, this is how you're declaring it. You say in math, and you have to have that. You have to have the M capital because this is a special keyword. So you say in math.pow, and then you give it 2 arguments. The first argument is the number that you want to put the exponent on. So you say, so it's basically saying 5 to the power of 2. That's basically what he's saying. So you're supposed to get like 25, 5 times 5. So all these are other examples. So so you have all these examples. Let me guys give you a little bit of math trivia if we have time. So let's say math.pow. Let's say 3 on, let's say 3 and 2. Let's start simple. What do you guys think we're gonna get?
9.
9. Okay, and we have to give this a variable so we can run. So we say our math 9. Okay, good. So let's run it in the browser. 9. Okay, good. That's a good one. let's make it a little bit interesting. Let's say 5. Let's give it 5 here. Let's say maybe like maybe let's give it 4. What do you guys think? You know how exponents work? They grow exponentially.
5 times 5. So you're gonna multiply 5 itself 4 times.
It's a big number.
I'm gonna try in 1 second. 5 times 5, that's 25.
It's
Times
25
5,
times.
which is
It's kind of like
125
times 500, I guess.
times another. It's like 1,000 or
100.
something.
Yeah, 100.
5.
Let's see. 625. So it's 5
Yeah,
times 5
625.
times
Yeah.
5 times 5. Yeah. So you know how exponents work. They grow exponentially, really fast. So that's POW. It's really nice to have that. And also there's these few other. There's a lot of them, but these are a few of them that are mostly used. Math.round. So these are the examples we gave. Math.round basically rounds to the highest, to the nearest number. So if you give you math.round a number that's above 0.5 or half, the usual math that we know, if you want to round something, if it's above 5, I mean half 0.5, you go up. If it's lower than that, if it's 0.4, you round down, right? So that's basically what it's saying. So 6.5, it rounds up. 6.45, but it rounds down. So this is the usual one that you guys knew. Math.floor is you force it so that it goes down. So this one is basically like going against the usual way that you guys know how to run numbers. So this one is 6.9, but it runs to 6. So you just floor it. So floor means like it goes down. And usually I just remember because it's just floor. And then there's a seal. Ceiling is like the, your house ceiling. So, and this one you go up. It doesn't matter how small the number is. If there's any number that comes after the dot, you just go up basically. So these are the methods that you could learn. Any questions about that, about the math and modular and all that stuff? Okay. I'll give it a second. All right, let's go to the next lesson, which is comparison operators. In JavaScript, just like the math that you guys learned, it has comparisons. So there's several comparisons in JavaScript. So we have a couple of them. We have greater than, right here, greater than. We have greater than or equal to. We have less than. We have less than or equal to. And then we have equal to and not equal to. So we have equal to with 3 equals. And that sometimes kind of confuses people. So let's practice that and let's see how that actually works out. So we're going to say here something like, let's say our number or something like that, our num. And we're going to say here 10 is, we'll say 10 is less than 5. So basically what are we expecting here is true or false. So let's see if that runs here. False. So which is kind of obvious. So 10 is not less than 5. Then if we say 10 is greater than 5, of course, it just says true. Now let's say if let's say 10 is equal to, is 10 equal to, so here, right here, you have one equal. So the other ones you guys know, greater than, equal, all that. So it's similar. So greater than, or you say equal or greater. So now you're basically saying, oh, the other side. So that's how you say greater than or equal to. Is 10 greater than or equal to 10? So it should say false. I mean, what? Oh yeah, it's equal. It is equal. So 10 is equal to. So now we said is it greater than or equal to 10? It just chose this. So we have two comparisons here. So it just took this and it said, okay, it's the same. But if we just go with one, it will say false. And the other way is the same. So it will just, if you say Is it less than or equal to? It will say true. But now, if we want to check if they're equal, we can check it like that. So two equals, make sure that it asks if these are equal. So we should have true. So that's kind of normal. The only thing you guys need to make sure to understand is that when it comes to like these equal stuff, is that this equal, the one equal in JavaScript, is assignment. It's called assignment. So you're assigning. You're basically saying take this variable and have this, put this in this variable. So as we learned in the variable is a container, and this is the value. So you put it inside this. But these two basically you're creating a condition. You're saying, are these two equal? Give me true or false. That's what you're basically saying. But in JavaScript, there's something interesting. There's something weird. So if you do this, if we do that, what do you guys think is going to happen? Is it going to say true or false?
False.
Is it going to say false? Okay. Let's test it. Why do you think it's going to say false?
Because it's integer and number. They're not equal.
Okay, good. That's the way you should think as like normal human being. But it says true. It says true, and this is one of the things that people don't like about JavaScript, is that it's like, okay, these are two numbers, and they're equal, and I don't care. So that's what JavaScript is basically saying right now. I don't care. So that's when they invented the triple equal. That's when the triple equal came. Is when people complain about like, okay, a number that's a string is not the same as a number. What are you talking about? So kind of JavaScript added the third one, which is strange in like in when you know math, you never seen triple equal. Triple equal, basically what it does is it takes this and it says, give me the type. So now it's an integer or a number. Give me the value. It's a 10. Okay, I'm gonna take these two and I'm gonna compare it to this. That's what the triple is doing. But if you just say equal, what it's doing is the value is the same. That's what it's only checking the value. It's saying is this is a 10, this is a 10. I don't care, they're equal. But if you do that and we run it, it will say false because of basically it's not compared. So yeah, so that's why we use the triple. Keep that in mind. It's really, really important when you use the triple, is that you making sure this is 100% equal. So I always use triple. I never use two equals. So it's kind of like the var variable. We just use the triple. There's also this. What do you guys think that is? What do you guys?
Not equal to.
Okay, not equal to. Okay. So good. So not equal to 10 is not equal to a string 10, or this 10. So when you see that, the exclamation mark, it means not. Anywhere in programming mostly, that's a not. So we replace one of the equals to not. And you could also have like one equal and one not, and that will also mean the same. But it's still, you don't have that strong. Actually, yeah, you don't have the strong way of comparing these two, so it just basically says false because the value is exactly the same. So that's a not. So those are comparisons. We have a couple of comparisons. We have greater than. So this is greater than. How do you greater than? This is no, that's less than, actually. Sorry, less than. And you could write a note here if you want. This is greater than. It's kind of confusing, that greater than. You also have equal to, but just a value. You also have equal to, check value and type. And you have less than or equal to, less than or equal to. And then you also have a greater than or equal to. I think that's how you write. Greater equal to, greater than equal to, and greater than or equal to, and it's in the note. So in the lesson, so you could go here and see the comparison here. So we explained all of it. So that is what we explained the triple equal what it is, and we explained what not is. So those are the equal operators. I mean, comparison operators. Those are the ones that you have. So let's just make it look nicer. Okay. So comparison operators. Let's go to the other part of the. Let me just give it a comment out. Comment it out. Okay. All right. So let's get rid of this. So now let's go to the next one, which is logical operators. We have a couple of logical operators. I think we have 3 of them, or 2. Yeah, 2 of them, but then we have the opposite of them. Logical operators they compare 2 things logically. So they say, okay, the first one is and. So this is and. So they basically like, it's basically saying like these 2 numbers. You're saying this number is greater than this, and this number is greater than is equal to this. So the first one is n. So let's go to here and write let's say n. Okay, so and you write it like that, like this. So it's 2 ampersand sign. No, 2 ampersand, 2 unsigned. And if you touch your keyboard, shift and number 7, that's how you get it. Okay, and then these basically is an. This is an. And if you want to see how this is used, is right here. So if you take this example and we give it a variable, let's say let equal or equal, let's say something like that, equal to that, and we put this here. So this, let's explain what this is saying. So there's two statements. The first statement is saying 100 is greater than 10, which is true. And then it's saying 10 is equal to 10 exactly, which is true. So these both statements are true. So the whole statement should be true. So let's do that. It's true. So now if we say that, if we say 100 is less than 10, and 10 is equal to 10, what do you guys think we're gonna get? True or false? What do you guys think? We're saying 100 is less than 10 and false.
I think it's still true because one of them is true.
Okay.
But
So
one of them is false though. It's not both of them.
One of them is false. One of them is true. So what do you guys think we
As
can get?
long as there's one true, I think it might be true.
I think what you're thinking about is the or. So the or, it's coming. The or, only one statement has to be true, but the and, both statements have to be true. So that's the only difference. So we'll go to the or. So it's false because one of the statements is not true. So it's basically saying 100 is equal. It's basically saying so and so is tall, and so is not tall. So it's like you have the opposite of 2 things that are not equal. So that in that statement is the whole statement is false because one thing is not true. So just like that, 100 is less than 10 is not true. So this whole statement becomes false. So we also have the or. So right here is the or, and the or is basically two pipes. So to get that, you hold shift in Windows, and then right above your shift underneath your back key, there's that. So it's right next to this, the backward slash. So if you put that right here right now, you're basically saying 100 is less than 10, or 10 is equal to 10. So one statement has to be true and the whole statement becomes true. So these are the most well-known comparison operators, or should I say logical operators. You could also add, you could also have a not in there if you want, but it's kind of like redundant sometimes. So we'll not go into it. So those are the two main ones, and or. Okay, so some note about the logical operators. A couple of things to note about logical operators. The expressions are evaluated in order. So here's important. The expressions are evaluated in order. So first, the engine evaluates this one first, and then it goes to this one. So that's something important to keep in mind. And the computer will skip any redundant expressions in an statement, or this statement and a statement. If the first expression is false, so if we have this and we have like that, and first expression, which is this one, is false, then if the first expression is false, the second expression will not be evaluated. So basically, when the program runs and it sees this and it sees an, it's like, oh, never mind, it's false. Because from there on, anything that comes after, even if it's true, it doesn't matter, because the whole statement is false. So the second will not be evaluated. And okay, so that's important. So what was I? The second expression will not be evaluated because both expressions need to be true. Some of the, okay, same for the or statement. If the first expression is true, the second statement will not be evaluated. So if you have or here, like that, and the first statement is false, so it says here if the first statement is true, then the second statement will not be evaluated. So it will just say true, and if the first statement is false, it will go to the next statement and it will check. So that's the only difference. So use parentheses. So all this stuff is more explanation. So that's in general. That's what do you call logical operators and comparison operators. Those are really important to learn, and we will use them in here right now. We're going to start with this one. Any questions about that? About the logical operators and comparison operators? Any question about them? All right. Let me know if you don't understand anything about it, or if I'm going too fast about something. Let me know. I'll try to slow down and explain a little bit more. All right. Okay, so now let's get to one of the last parts of this lesson, which we have about 30 minutes to finish everything. So we have the control flow and we have the loops. So I think that'll be it for today. So control flow. Okay, so this one is really, really important. So today, if you take anything from here, take the control flow, because it will help you with your assignment, and and it's really simple. It's easy too. Okay. If she said, what about two statements that are false? So if you have two statements that are false, then the whole statement becomes false. So it checks if the two statements are false, then it checks the first one and it says if it has an, then it will say okay, then that means if the first one is false, then the last one doesn't matter. But if it has or here, and which it has now, if it has or here and the first statement is false, it checks the next statement. And if the next statement is false, then the whole statement is false. If the next statement is true, then it says it's true. The whole statement is true because it's just or. You just have to pick one. So it's like saying, okay, shoe number 1 or shoe number 2. Which one should I take? Or. So you just pick one. But if it's but if somebody gives you 2 shoes and says you have to take both shoes, you have to take shoe 1 and shoe 2 to win the prize or whatever, then you cannot walk away. You cannot just walk away with one. You have to take both, or you can't win. So that's kind of like how to think about it when comparing the two. So just write it down. Note this is and this is or, and you'll be good. Any other questions? Okay.
No.
All right. Let's continue. So control flow. What is control flow? So control flow or conditional statements is in every programming language. So usually, let me see. That's a good question. Yeah. Usually, when you're working with programming, the main thing that differentiates a programming from like HTML or let's say CSS or anything that's not programming, the main difference is that program you could tell it to do something, and if that's not true, you could tell it to do something else, and it kind of decides itself. It checks that. It says, "Is that true? If it's not true, I'm just gonna do this." So that's the main thing that generally differentiates programming from other things, that just like the design, the style, the elements, all that stuff. Programming has a way to like decide by itself without you being in there. It says, okay, let's say there's a website, you create a website and you want people to log in to the website. You create a condition, a program that says, is this person, are they like verified? Are they part of the website? To check that, the program just goes to the database, checks whatever email they put, is it in the database? If it's not, it will say, sorry, we can't let you in. And the person doesn't have a choice. They can't just negotiate with the program and say, sorry, can you just let me in anyways? So the program just goes back. So you're sleeping in your house, somebody comes, tries to hack your website, it asks, oh, you're not part of the system, so I'm sorry, like you just can't get in. So like just like we actually did in our software right here, this software, you can't just log in. So this software we have right now, which we created ourselves, you can't just log in. So if you're logging in, you have to have the right credentials to log in. So if you don't, it will just say, sorry, you're just not part of this. So it will just give you a message. So that is one of the things that actually differentiates programming from other things. It's just basically making sure something is correct and true. So control flow, that's what it helps with. It says, is this true? If it's not, do this. If it is, do that. That's a control flow, and that's a conditional statement. So here it says, oftentimes as programmers is reading and executing our code, we want the code to run only if something is true. For example, add 1 point to the variable score if the character touches a coin. So for example, we talked about how we variable, how we can have a soccer and we have two teams and two variables. You could create a if statement or conditional statement which says if a team does this, give it a point. Like if they have a goal, then give this. If the goal is true, give this. Give the point. So this is how you write a conditional statement. So let's actually go to here and write it down. I hope you guys take a note of this. Maybe take a screenshot. Anyone wants to take a screenshot of this? Okay, I'm gonna delete it. Sounds like I'm in like actual class. This is actual class, but like in a whiteboard, blackboard. Let's go on and let's declare a variable. Let's say my age, and let's say my age is 25. Let's say that's not my real age. That's not my actual age. I'm 30 plus. So let's say let's create a if statement here. So if you want to create a conditional statement, first thing you have to start with is if. So just like in normal everyday saying, if so and so comes, that's what I will do, something like that. So it's the normal if, and then you give it that bracket. So you give it this parenthesis, not a bracket, these parentheses, and then within the parentheses you give it a condition. You say if this is true. So you say if my age is equal to. Remember we said JavaScript you have three equals to make some to have a correct thing going on. If my age is 18, or you could say if my age, let's say if my age is greater than, if my age is greater than 18, then we say console log you can drive now. So let's say we have a driving school and we have a software, and it says if the age is greater than 18, give them a message that says you can drive now. So now if we run this, in our browser right here, it says you can drive now because the age that we have is greater than 18. So if we say here 16, it will not run anything. It will just not run anything because there's no other way to declare it. That's where else comes. So else is it goes right after the if. You say else, and it's a keyword, so you cannot just change it to whatever you want. So you say console log. Sorry, you can't drive. Cannot drive now. So if the age is not greater than, so the else means whatever that comes after. So if it's not, so this one is 16, so 16 is less than 18. So now if this statement is not true, run this. So run here. So now if we run this, we'll say sorry, you cannot drive now. So that's how you use a conditional statement. You just give the program a message. So right here, you could make the person put their age in. There's a way to do that, and then we could actually do it. Let's try. Let's say it's called prompt, and we might have to do something. Enter your age. And I'm just worried about the browser freaking out or the video having something. So we should have a pop-up here. So we have the pop-up and it says enter your age. We say, oh, I'm 35, let's say. And we should have a message here. Oh, you can drive now. So I see how powerful that is when you combine it with a lot of things. So if we put here 16, let's say 16, and we run it again, and we say my age is, let's say, 15. Sorry, you can't drive now. So even we lowered the age, it says you can't drive now. So that's really powerful. That's really nice. But we also want to check other things. We want to check if the person's age is between 18 and 16. 16 and 18, because a lot of times in US you allow students, kids to drive when they're like 15 or 16, usually 16. So we want to check if that's true. And if that's the case, then we say something like, oh, maybe you could drive. You have to check with something else. So to do that, we have to create something else, something called else if. Else if, and we could put a parenthesis here and run another condition. We say age is we say is greater than 16, or we could say equal or greater 16. Then run this statement. And we say console log. We say something like maybe you could drive. Okay, so now you always have to make the else the last one. So the last one has to be the else. If you put else in the middle, it will not work. And if you put the else if at the bottom, it will not work. And you could have as many else ifs as you want. So this is the else if statement. You could add as many else ifs as you want. So now if we run, so this one is saying basically if it's greater than 18, then you could say you could drive. But if it's greater than or equal to 16, then you say maybe you could drive. So now if we refresh and we put something like, oh, I'm 17, it says maybe you can drive. So that's kind of like how you set up for if statement and conditional statement. And this is really, really powerful, and because it is a way to kind of like create a flow of message. So you could send some people one way, you could send other people one way. And a lot of times it's used also in gaming and things like that. Someone send a message. Yeah, so it's similar to Python. So JavaScript and other programming languages are very similar. In Python, it's just elif, I think it's like that. I always mix up things, so in different languages. So sometimes I might have to kind of like look up. So that's how you create a conditional statement. And it's really, really nice to kind of have that power of creating a expression. In the assignment, today you'll have a problem that you have to create. It's not due to today; it's due on Monday. But you'll have a problem to do that uses a mix of the if statement and the math that we used, the module that we used. So you kind of have to create, I think it is, you have to create a calculator, not a calculator. You have to create something that checks if the number is even. So that's one of the problems. And I'll show you the assignment. So all this is just the combination of what we just did. It checks if number is equal to 3, then it console logs this. If else, it console logs this. So it's a combination of what we just did. So why do we use else if? You may think of yourself, why not just use a bunch of different ifs? Which is a lot of people think of that way. So why are we using else if? Why don't we just say if my age is equal to is greater than or whatever, this and that, and then is greater than or equal to 16, and then run another one, another console log here. And then if you want something else, if none of those are true, run if another if you say my age is let's say greater than or whatever, greater than 18, run this. So that's kind of like, that's what some people think, but in reality it's good to kind of nest your statements so that it evaluates each in order. Let me just go back to the way it was. So what it does is, what this program does, it evaluates this problem, and then if it's true and compare it to this, then it kind of renders this one. If not, it renders this one. But if you just say if, then it evaluates all of them at once. So you will just get a bunch of answers at once. And we could test that if you want. But it evaluates all of them at once. So that's not good. Okay, so that's if statement. We have about 20 minutes, so we're gonna go over loops. Any questions about conditional statements? And today is just introduction. So in the future, we'll go in depth into combining this with a function and other things, and it's gonna be a little more, advanced in the next lesson next week. Any questions about that?
Can you run like if after the else, like before? Now you have like if, and then you have else if, and then else. So at the bottom, can you put like if again?
If you want to run something else that's completely different, yes. So if you want to run another prompt, so let's say you want to run something like what's your name, then you could run here. Or you could, if it's completely different than this, then you could run. But if it's connected and things are connected, it's always important to connect them.
Has to be disordered.
It has to be ordered because it executes in order. So it executes this and then executes this and executes this. And if any of them is true, it renders. But if you put something, if statement here and say something like my age, say you run the same thing, then it runs these two exact the same time. And then you have two answers instead of having one answer where you want to get one of these messages. So that's
that prompt, is that a function just like the
this code here?
Oh, the prompt, is that a function?
Yeah, so the prompt is a function. It's part of JavaScript, just like we had like the math.pow is part of like built in something. It's like the console log. So we're using console log all the time. It understands that when you put a prompt here, it means give me a dial box or a box that gives me a message, asks me a message. So when you refresh it, the browser already knows a prompt means give me a box, and whatever in that prompt, put it in this variable. So it's really nice to have that. And also in Python, also it has that. People coming from Python, it has an input, something called input. So yeah, the prompt. And also there's also something called alert. Last time I ran alert, it kind of broke my recording. So I'm not gonna run alert, but you could put alert, but it will not alert a message. It will just alert this message. It will just say enter your age, but it will not give you this box to put your age. So we didn't give anything, so now it ran else statement. Any questions about conditional statements?
Okay, one question, but not really about conditional conditional statement, but the way you have them stacked right under each other with the curly bracket right under the first if, and then the other one right under the second curly bracket. Is that important? If you scooch them one way or another, does that render the wrong answer or give you an error?
So yeah, so in JavaScript it doesn't care about the space. We're doing this only for the way we see it, so we want to make it look nicer. But in reality, you could just say you could just put everything in line and do that, and put this one in this line and just do that. It doesn't matter. But we're doing it because we want to make it look nice. That's all. So you could put this right here and then run the program and it will run normally. So if we say something like 25, you can drive now, it runs normally. The spaces don't matter right here. You can run like that. So it does not matter. So in JavaScript, it doesn't check the spaces. So if we say 25, it just runs. It doesn't check the spaces. So you could squish everything together. But just for my eyes or for your eyes, it's better to kind of like put things in a new line and have this nested so that you know that this statement goes under this if, and then this statement goes under this else if. So it's just for the eyes, but the space doesn't matter. So yeah. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. We have about
Duran.
yeah, brother.
So on the prompt, the way you said it for the alert, it will pop up on the console saying like put the age, right? Like it will like show it
No,
in there.
no. So
That's it.
alert will just alert this message. It will just have a box. There will be a box that pops up, and it will just say enter your age, but it will not give you a. It will not give you anything. So if we do that and we save it, let you know the recording break if it wants. So we're gonna refresh it. It will just say that enter your age, but there's nothing. You can't enter anything. So that's why we
Yeah,
use
there's no the input. The input is not there.
the input is not there. Usually, you use alert when you're trying to alert something in a website. So a lot of times you use it in like pop-ups, or if you want to pop up a message, or it's in like Bootstrap and things like that, where you have like a box that has a form in it, things like that. But a lot of times you don't want to use alert because it kind of like kind of throws off the person and their flow of kind of using the website. But yeah, um, hopefully my recording doesn't have an issue after this. So, any other questions you guys have about conditional statements? All right, let's move on. So we want to finish it on time. I don't think we will, but let's solve this. Let's talk about the loops. So loops are, I keep saying things that are important, but let's say loops are essential to to programming, any programming language. So it says his loops are fundamental to dry programming. Does anyone know what dry means? Can somebody? Does anyone remember what it means? Dry. Well, it's acronym. It's an acronym for something.
Don't repeat yourself.
Yes. So that's good. Don't repeat yourself. So don't repeat yourself. Dry. It's a concept in programming. If you write something, don't ever repeat yourself. So what does that even mean? Let's actually go through the reading here. In programming, allows you, the developer, to run a chunk of code, and that's the loops. It allows you to write a chunk of code repeatedly. So it keeps running the same code again and again. Understand the basics of okay. And then it says most software run on loops. Eventually, expressions over and over again, evaluating expressions again and again until it returns what we are looking for. So, for example, if you have like millions of names and you're looking for one name, and you use loop, you just say loop over this millions of names. Take about like a five. Most of it takes like a couple of seconds for computers. It just loops over and says, okay, I found so and so. So that's what loops do. It has a little code and it just checks everything really quick, really fast. So that's what loops do. There's two types of loops in JavaScript. There's for loop and there is while loop. So those are the two ways to loop things in JavaScript. Let me give you an example. Let's get rid of this. If you guys want to take a screenshot or something, it's up to you. But it's in the notes to lecture. So let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go a little bit crazy and say this. So remember how when you were young, when you do something, your teacher asks you to write a letter that says, "I will not do this again. I will not. Sorry, teacher, I will not do this again." I don't know if you guys remember, but let's actually do that. Sorry, teacher. Sorry, I will not do this again. Now let's repeat this. Let's repeat this 100 times. Do you think that's possible? It's a wasting of time, right? So if we keep repeating this, I mean, we're using copy and paste now, which is easy. But if you're writing this on hand, this is like terrible. So in programming, this is what we mean by dry. Don't repeat yourself. You keep repeating this yourself by saying this statement. Now, how do you take this and write 1 or 2 lines of code and it repeats about like 1,000 times easily? So let's get rid of this because it's ridiculous. We use for loop. So for loop is a way to loop a message or whatever you want. So for loop, it starts with the keyword for, and then you put it in. You have parentheses here, and then you put the condition here. You have 3 conditions. You have to create 3 conditions, and also you have to. So the 3 conditions is you have to give it where it starts. You have to give it how many times it's going to loop over whatever you have, and you have to give it how it's going to loop. Is it going to loop one at a time, or is it going to loop a 2 at a time? So how is it going to do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to say let I is equal to 0. So this is where it starts. So it starts here. It says we're going to say start the program from 0. So, and we have I. Now we're going to loop through the I. As long as I is less than 10. And then we're going to say, and also increment it, keep going 1 at a time. How do you say that in programming? You say you have this. So this is called increment. You add plus plus, that means 1 at a time. So you say 1, 2, 3. If you say something like this, it's basically saying 2 at a time. So you're saying 2, 4, you're going like that, 6. So if you want to go 1 at a time, you just say it like that. This is increment. So this is our condition. We're saying keep going from 0 to 10 as long I is less than 10, and then keep incrementing. And now we're just gonna open this and we're gonna give it what it's gonna increment. What is it gonna loop? So let's say something like let's console log I, because we want to know how it's gonna loop I itself. And I know you guys, it's a Maghrib time in here in Minnesota, so I'm gonna try to finish it quicker. So now what it did was it went through the program. It started from 0 and it went all the way to 9. What do you guys think? Why is that? We said 10, remember? Why did it go to 9?
Because it started from 0.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay. Any other answers for that? Why does it say 9? Since
Less.
Okay.
Yeah, if you add the equal sign, it will be up to 10, I guess.
10.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good one. So if we add equal, that means it's going up to. So when we say less than, we're saying go up to 10, but don't add 10. So if we say equal, that means go up to 10 and then include 10. That's what we're saying. So now it should run, and it should give us 10. And the reason why it starts with 0 is because we just told it. We just said it starts from 0. If you want it to start with 1, you say 1, and it goes all the way from 1 to 10. So the program only does what you tell it. Now,
Okay.
remember, yeah, go ahead if you have a question.
No, I was gonna ask you, if you put I equal to true, it's that gonna come? What's gonna come out, like 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4?
Oh, if you put 2 here.
No, you put it true, like a
Or
bullet.
if you set it true.
Yeah.
So if you set it true, it will have an error, from my understanding. The reason for that, because true is not a number, and you're basically saying true. Here you're basically saying if true is
Oh yeah, I got you.
equal or less than 10. So it will have
Okay.
an error because true is not a number. So you have to give it a number here. And that's how it knows where to start. So now, remember we said that we're going to repeat a message and we did something and the teacher said you guys have to repeat it. So you say here, I will not repeat again. Repeat again. So now, instead of writing that 10 times, we could just, it does 10 times here. But in the browser, it doesn't repeat because it's not efficient. So it just gives you 11 here. But let's go to Replit and run the same message here. And it gives you, sorry teacher, I want to do it again. And if you do this 100 times, you could do that. The more you have, the more number you have here, the slower the program becomes. So if you put 500, it takes a while to load. See, so we put 500 times. Sorry teacher, I will not repeat again. So now, okay, now something to be aware of, to be 100% aware of, your computer is going to crash if you do this, is by if you do as long as as long as I is greater than 10. Basically you're giving it infinite. You're saying, okay, just keep going forever, and now your computer is going to crash, and your browser is going to crash. So if we run that in Replit, it will actually stop, because I think Replit is kind of smart, because they already know that. So if we just say that it greater than, and then it will just keep running forever, and it's gonna freeze or something like that. So I don't even know where it's gonna stop. Did it even stop? I don't know, but that's gonna freeze your whole computer, and it's gonna freeze your whole browser, and it's gonna crash. So that's called infinite. So right here, infinite loop. That's when you don't give it a condition to stop, and you just say something like, yeah, as long as I is equal or greater than 0, then it just keeps going forever and it crashes your computer. So keep that in mind. Let's go over any questions about the for loop and how to declare it. So all you have to know is just how to declare this and what these mean. So this is a starting point. This is the condition of how long it's gonna go on, and this is the increment, which is how it's gonna step. So if we put here, let's see, if we put here I, the numbers we had, and if we put here 2, so from my understanding last time is that it's gonna, what is it? Where? Okay, I think it's gonna, let's see, 1 plus 2. Oh, okay, I think it's plus 2 or something. No, it's not gonna run. Okay, so I have to check. I have to look into that. But if you put more than that, if you put, oh, actually it's 3 pluses, I think. Maybe I'm thinking of Python. No, it's not. I'm thinking of Python. So let's see. We ran out of time. For loop, increment more than 1. If you want to increment more than 1, this is how you increment. So you say, okay, I equal to or plus 1. So yeah, that's what we did right here. So it didn't work. Okay, so we say, yeah, okay, we say equal, plus or equal to 2. So now it should skip 2. Okay, it's not, oh, it's not rendering console log. Why is it not rendering?
Maybe it needs space, or
most of the space doesn't matter in the JavaScript. So this is decrement. If you want to do decrement, if you want to go down one at a time, we're doing the same thing they're doing, but it's not doing it. So let's try here. Let's do something like that. This should be a number. It should be I.
I plus equal to 2.
Oh, I plus equal to 2. Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I mean, you will see it in the wild, but most of the time people don't use it. But this will run. It will say 1. It will say 3. It will say 5. It will just skip by 2 instead of skip by 1. So that's mainly it. That's what it does. And I'll share like maybe the later on. It's not even running anything. Oh, okay, because it's infinite. Okay, it's infinite here. Yeah, that's where we had the problem. Oh yeah, okay. So so this should run in the browser. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. So it says 0, 2, 4. So it's incrementing by 2. So incremented by 2. So that's usually how you do incremented by 2. Any questions about for loop? We'll finish up with the while loop. So while loop is similar to for loop. The only difference is that you don't have a lot of conditions here. You only have one condition. So if that condition is true, then it stops. So this is generally how you run. You declare a condition at the beginning, and you say, okay, if that condition is less than so if 1, as long as 1 is less than 10, then run this. So this is what it's going to do is it's going to count down to 1. So it's going to go down to 1, and then it's going to stop at 1. So if we run this, we copy this, and we just indent it properly. Let's indent properly. Okay, so now this code, what is it doing is it's taking a variable and it's giving it 10, it's giving it 1, and it's saying if that variable, as long as that variable is less than 10, then keep going this. So 10 will just go down 1 at a time, and it will increment by this one. It will increment by 2, but you could also say plus plus here, so like that, and it will just keep going 1 at a time. So if we do that, I hope it doesn't crash or something. As you can see, it goes from 1 to 9. So it's the same thing as the one we had.
I think you can make. I think now you can make a count equal to true, not 1.
Okay. Oh, it increments by 3. Okay, by 2. So this starts at 1. So this is the start. It starts at 1, and then it just goes up to this number, up to 10. So it's exactly the same thing. It doesn't count down. I thought I had set up for it to count down, but what it's doing is it's saying, okay, while just keep going while count is less than 10, and then you cancel login each time, and then it checks. So the condition comes. So here you add something to the condition. You add 1, let's say. So this is incremented by 1. You add 1 to it, and then it goes back and it checks if this condition is true. If this condition is true and 1 is less than 10, then it goes back and adds another 1, and then it goes back. So that's how it works. You don't have usually you don't have like, it's the same thing, but you put the increment inside and it checks the condition, and then it just goes back. So it does 1 at a time. That's the only difference. So it just goes back. But if you have the for loop, it just checks all the condition at once, and then it just runs the whole program. This one is it checks every time, it goes back, checks every time. If it's not true, just it exits the program. So it's 1 at a time, and the for loop is just it checks everything at once, and then it gives you the result.
Yeah. So now you can set it equal to true or false, right? On the top where it says count equal to 1.
Yes. So yeah, so the while loop you could say you could set it here true, but yeah, you could set true here, but you have to have a condition that sets true. So yeah, you have to have a condition that sets true, but this one is a number. We have a number here, so you could say as long as this one count is equal to true, you could say true here. Keep going. You could say that way. So you're saying as long as it's true, and if this is not true, let's say sometimes you have a program that runs, like you have if statement here, and the if statement has true or false. It's either going to bring out a true or false. Then that's when you're going to run the while loop. So you say, okay, so is the count true? Then now run. If it's true, keep going and look for something. So it's basically saying like, If the name is equal to so and so, just keep looking for, and then keep repeating the same process again and again. So a lot of times there's very few cases that you will use for the while loop. Most of the time you will use a for loop. And also when we get to advanced JavaScript and React, you will not use none of this. You will not use for loop and you will not use while loop. You will use a advanced loops that are built in JavaScript that we will learn. But for now, just understand that both of them are similar. This one checks the condition one at a time and then compares it to what you have here. Okay, so that's while loop. Any questions about that? We're gonna go to the assignment and explain what it is. Any questions? All right, we went over. So let's go to the assignment for today. So assignment for today, or I mean for Monday, it's due on Monday, is that we will, you will fork this, go ahead, fork it, clone it to your computer, and then click this right here. So the index.js, click that, and then you have all the instructions you need to do here. So follow step by step. So there's a task one, which you will create a foreign age variable. There's task 2, task 3, which you will convert strings to numbers. There is a mood checker task, which you will do. There's odd and even task. So you need to use a conditional statement to check if a number is odd or even. And then there is also, let's see. So there's also a Visbis program. So this is also the big one. This is the last one that you have to do. The one after that is just a stretch. So remember we said that stretch is you only do it when you finish this. So Fizzbuzz is the only complicated one. The rest are pretty easy, straightforward if you practice a little bit. So the Fizzbuzz is a game that it's not a game. It's a way to check if a number is divisible by 3 or 5 or by 15. So just read the instruction and try your best. Google it, whatever you want to do, you need to do. But write down your assignment and just send it again. You don't have to do any HTML or anything like that after this. All you have to do is just answer those questions and then submit them. That's your assignment. Any questions? All right. Okay. So we'll conclude it here. So after Monday, we will have the Spring Project. So after Monday, we'll have a Spring Project, guys. So I will explain it on Monday what this is and what it does and what you guys need to do. But it's going to be after Monday. It's going to start Tuesday. So yeah, have a good night. Let me know if you guys.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
For the last assignment,
yeah.
Do you want us to put pictures or just make it responsive? I finished up, but on the picture that we're supposed to mimic, it has a kind of gallery pictures at the end.
Okay, last assignment, I think it was responsive. So the responsive one, yeah, you just need to, you don't have to put a picture in it. You just keep it the way it is. And also, if it says here, put a picture, I don't think I said put a picture.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I said this one is optional. You don't have to put a picture. The gallery section is optional. But if you want to go straight and like try your best, you could like go ahead and add pictures to it. But the MVP right here is you don't need a picture. You just need to you need to be exactly like this. Is not exactly, but you need to be similar to this, where if it's mobile, everything's stacked and it looks nice. So that's mainly it. Any other questions before we close out? Okay, I will close out. Have a good night, guys. Have a good Sunday. Take a break from coding. Give yourself a time. Don't burn yourself out. So enjoy Sunday, and I'll see you guys on Monday, inshallah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Okay. Alaikum salam.